Welcome back, everyone, to more from the Stabilized. I'm here today with Blake. How are we doing, Blake?
I'm doing well, thanks, Mitch.
That is good, and today we're running through another deck profile, and this time it's a deck that Blake has been working on, and that is Nagandel Guzzlord Tag Team. I have never seen any of this deck before, so I'm excited to see how it works out, because it seems pretty cool, and it's got lots of Ultra Beasts, which is always exciting.
Yeah, there's so much going on with this card. I really struggled to figure out the way to build this deck that made it feel like it was being used properly. Um, Obviously it's not the biggest damage dealer, so like trying to build it just to take prizes felt weird. It felt like there'd be cards that do it better. But its ability makes it like a super tanky Pokemon, and it does have that extremely large 280 hit points. So we do play 4 copies of the Nagandel Guzzlord, and its GX attack. If you have the first 2 parts of the attack costs, Psychic and Dark, then you get to take 2 prize cards and flip over your prize cards and then take 2 of them basically.
Well, that's a
Which
really,
is
really strong effect, isn't it? Like, the effect of just being able to look at all of your prizes and take the 2 best ones for free is
yeah,
really strong.
yeah, it's exceptionally strong. Um, I think it's like Needle Pierce or something like that for 180 is just a real vanilla 180 for Psychic Dark Colorless. But its ability is the real star here, where you can just discard any Pokemon from your hands once per turn and heal 60 from this Pokemon, which is really strong. Um, Obviously, the card is weak to Fairy. Fairy is sort of rising up in popularity these days. I see Gardevoir getting stronger and stronger with every set release, so we have some tools in the deck to sort of help with that. It also has a hefty 3 retreat cost, but I'm not going to be doing too much retreating in this deck. We're just going to be trying to basically out heal and tank the damage our opponent will deal to us, and then eventually just win through what's the word?
Attrition?
Attrition. I was
You're
I
desperately
was like I
searching
was like
for it.
I was like altitude attribute.
That's not it.
What?
I know what I want to say. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's a super buff Pokemon with 280 HP, and the ability to heal just by discarding Pokemon is really strong. So it'll be interesting to see what you pair it with.
and I've decided to try to beef up and accentuate the tankiness of the card by pairing it with 4 copies of Stack Attacker GX. This card is still in the format. Uh, it has not been played with anything. So if you're not familiar, then its Ultra Wall ability reduces damage done to your Ultra Beast by 10 for each copy of Stack Attacker, or rather, it does 10. Each Stack Attacker provides minus 10, so you can have your Ultra Beast taking minus 40 damage if you have 4 of these on the bench, and when you can heal 60 a turn and you're taking minus 40, I'll tell you what, that's a tanky boy.
Yeah, that makes it really, really difficult to get a big knockout on your NagaLord, and it's probably pretty reasonable to expect that it's going to be unlikely that Pokemon are going to two-hit it as well, because when you think about it, most Pokemon in the format are hitting for either really big numbers inconsistently, or numbers like 130 consistently. So 280 already is going to stop them from two-hitting, but the fact that you can heal and you're reducing the amount of damage that your opponent is doing means that your active NagaLord is likely to survive, especially if Pokemon can't take it out in one shot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to be doing any attacking. We don't even have the energy to have it power up an attack in this deck. So hopefully, with the new gust effects, the fact that this is a 180 HP bench sitter doesn't get abused too much. That's probably the main weakness of the deck, if I were to say, against the fire type decks, because it is fire weak. So we'll see if we can navigate around that hurdle, but we do have the tools to do so. But we also play 2 copies of the Pheromosa from Forbidden Light. The important thing about this card is that, well, one, it's an Ultra Beast, so it's searchable with Ultra Space, but it also has free retreat, which gives us a pivot if, say, NagaLord were to get affected by a special condition. We could switch it out of the active into the Pheromosa and then free retreat back into it. and keep applying pressure with it. And most importantly for this deck is that it's a Pokemon, so it can be consumed by NagaLord to heal 60 if we need to.
Yeah, exactly. If we don't need it to retreat, and once we've put one down, we don't realistically need two, we're going to be able to chuck that one into the mouth of NagaLord, heal off 60 damage, and move on with our life, which sounds pretty good to me.
Yep, and that's pretty much all the use for that one. And lastly, we play one copy of Buzzmosa Tag Team. This card is most in the deck not only just to act as another Pokemon to be fed to NagaLord, but it's also it's a fantastic opener in the deck. With the new Guzmahala tag team, which this deck plays, you can grab yourself the Beast Energy, Ultra Space, and a tool of your choice, and really start applying early pressure with Jet Punches from Buzzmosa, which is exceptionally strong when Guzzlord itself takes quite a while to, or NagaLord takes quite a while to get set up.
Yeah, if you're having to manually attach every turn to try and get your NagaLord in the range of attacking, then Buzzwole gives you a good option to be able to, get some early pressure on. Its 30 damage is also particularly good because with new cards like Silvally coming out, it means that you can put 30 damage onto a type null early in the game and then one-shot it later. So you give yourself an opportunity to set up your numbers to make it a little bit easier for you to find knockouts.
Yeah, absolutely. So that rounds out the Pokemon for this deck. We'll grab all of them. And then we'll move on to our supporters. So to start off with, if you're going first in this deck, then... Oh, I did not grab all of them.
I was about to say, I wonder if he notices that there's still one on the field.
If you're going first and you can't attack, then the best supporter for you to play in this deck is one of our 4 copies of Steven's Resolve. Typically you see this in a stall type deck, and I mean that makes sense because this deck is going to be doing a lot of stalling until it's happy to start attacking. It's just the difference between this and stall is that, well, it is eventually going to start taking prize cards. It's just going to do so in its own sweet time.
Yeah, so the idea of the deck is obviously not to stall out your opponent and deck them, rather just to maintain your control of the board, make it so that your opponent takes as long as possible to take their knockouts, and then eventually you'll get over the top of them and start taking your prizes until eventually you win.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for a deck that plays a majority of tag teams, if Steven's Resolve has evaded you in your first turn, then we also have a good backup supporter in 4 copies of Coach Trainer. This will help us draw some early resources, just get ourselves some attachments, hopefully find ourselves an Ultra Space and Cherish Balls and stuff like that to find ourselves our stack attackers to make it really hard for our opponents to start applying early pressure.
Yeah, Coach Trainer is a generic, good supporter for these tag team decks. Drawing 4 cards is pretty strong with no downside. Obviously, you do need to make sure that you have your tag team in the active, but usually you'll find it's pretty easy for yourself to do that, especially since just under 50% of your deck are tag teams. You can even play it when you're opening your Pheromosa Buzzwole as well, because it means that not only are you applying a little bit of extra pressure with Jet Punch, but you're also getting that extra draw from Coach Trainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we got Cynthia and Caitlin, we had a card that was much better than that at Recurring Supporters, which was Lusamine, and we're playing 2 copies of that card to help us get lesser played supporters back into our hands, which we'll see in just a second.
Yeah, Lusamine obviously strong in stall. If you don't have to play a supporter, then you don't necessarily need to. You can just Lusamine, get a couple of good ones back, and start looping some of your one support accounts. So I'm keen to see what they are.
Alright, so we'll start with our 2 counts. Now we've played 2 copies of Lana and Mallow. Obviously, healing in a deck that tries to delay our opponents taking knockouts is an obvious factor. It also switches, so it can help with special conditions as well. If we don't even need the heal, we don't need to discard, we can just play this on its own and just get the switch effect, which is nice. And it's just going to help push us over the limit in terms of being able to heal up our NagaLord.
Yeah, we've seen this deck in this card in lots of our decks that we've profiled on the channel. Mallow and Lana is a really, really strong supporter, and Yeah, its base effect is really good. Its second effect is really good. There's no reason not to play it, especially in a stall-based deck.
Yep, and moving on, we have more such utility. We have 2 copies of Tate and Liza. Like I've said before, I like having the option to shuffle draw in any deck if the need for it arises. And it also provides the necessary switch in a deck where the majority of your Pokemon have 3+ retreat. So, being able to switch into your baby Pheromosa and then being able to pivot back into the attacker of your choice if your opponent's trying to stall you or lock you out. It's just really good to have all these options.
Yeah, it's really, really strong, and the fact that you mentioned there are so many Pokemon with big retreat costs, it means that you're going to find it really hard if you are trying to stall out the stall deck. You're not going to be able to just bring up a stack attacker. I'm going to switch it out and put the Guzzlord back into the active.
Yeah, moving on, we have, for the first time in any of our deck profiles, as far as I'm aware, we have 2 copies of Guzma and Hala. I think this is an exceptional tag team supporter. It just doesn't really have a home at the moment because there's not too many decks that play all 3 of the searchable parts of this card that make it so great. But this deck does the infamously, relatively previously unsearchable Beast Energy now has a way to be searched out super early, along with Ultra Space plus a tool of your choice. It could be the new Beast Art, but we're not using the Beast Art in this deck. We do have other tools that you'll see in the future, but we have plenty of tool options to search out, and being able to search out Beast Energy, Ultra Space, and the tool of your choice is exceptionally strong for the price of just discarding 2.
Yeah, that's a super good effect, and like you said, it's not really got a space in lots of decks at the moment, because there aren't that many good special energy floating around, but you can expect to see this card come out once special energy gets a little bit better.
Yep, Ultra Beast currently having the best special energy at the moment, but when something akin to double colorless returns, or a deck that really relies on triple colorless turns up, then you'll see Guzma and Hala really peak in popularity. Next, I have 1 copy of Faber. The new supporter, Chaotic Swell, is rather annoying. This is one of the only ways that you can get rid of it and play your own supporter in the same turn.
Stadium.
Stadium. In the same turn. So we play 1 copy of that. It does deal with annoying tools from the opponent as well. Could be an Ultra Beast Charm or Ability Charm on an opposing Guardian as well. Get that one right into the Lost Zone. See you later. Don't have to deal with that anymore. Don't have to worry about playing Lysander Labs. It could even be a pesky special energy that we just want to deny to put our opponents back a turn as well. But a variety of uses for Faber to give ourselves a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, it's been coming up recently, obviously looking for ways to get rid of Chaotic Swell, and Faber is one of the most efficient ways to do it, especially since stadiums are so important.
Yeah, and lastly, we play a copy of Brock's Grit in a deck where you are eating literally all of your Pokemon to try and maintain the health of 1 or 2 over the course of a game. Then there might be a cause that you need to shuffle in the rest of those Pokemon so that you can give your Guzzlord more food. He's a hungry boy. He requires a big diet. He probably eats at least 2 dozen Wheat Bix.
That's a niche reference that lots of people won't get.
Yep. Yeah, it is. So we play the Brock's Grit to recycle those resources.
Yeah, Brock's really, really strong. When I first saw your Pokemon line, I was like, that is such a thin line, considering the way that the deck works. Means that Brock's is very important, and it's probably going to be, it could even be a Lusamine target early, because the ability for you to search out a Pokemon to heal 60 damage is so strong, so important for this deck to keep it going. I can't see you ever wanting to have no Pokemon in your deck.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always going to be a use, especially when every single Pokemon in the deck is searchable via Ultra Space. So if you're winning the Stadium War, which with the count of stadiums we have and access to Faber and Lusamine, you should always be winning that. So you always have access to those Ultra Beasts to be able to eat and heal. But we're not very short on healing cards in this deck. We have quite a few. We play 4 copies of Great Potion to help keep our Guzzlord alive. Yeah, it's going to be tough to keep damage on this Pokemon, I'll tell you that much. There's quite a lot of healing.
Yeah, especially when you include the Stack Attacker's ability into that as well. People who are doing big damage to NagaLord are going to find themselves doing just enough for you to be able to heal it off with the ability. Maybe a Great Potion and Alana and Mallow as well. You'll find that those big attacks will get healed straight away. And it's pretty crazy to think that you could potentially heal 210 damage in a turn just by playing one supporter, one Pokemon, and one Great Potion. So the idea that there's so much healing in the deck and that it's recurable through the Pokemon and the supporters, which can be searched with Lusamine, is just very intimidating.
Yeah, to being able to heal 210 in a turn and then also not being short on healing for the rest of the game is quite intimidating. So we'll move on to some Pokemon search from there. We're not playing the 4 mixed herbs. The NagaLord unfortunately has an ability, so without access to greens, mixed herbs is sort of out of our wheelhouse, but I think it's a bit overboard to play mixed herbs. But we play 4 copies of Cherish Ball to help search out our Guzzlords and our Stack Attackers early doors. Ultra Space only searches out 1 per turn, so if you want to get out multiples, we need to find Cherish Balls. So that's what we're going to need to do. So we play 4 copies of it to make sure we can get out as many as possible, as early as possible, so we take as little damage as possible.
Yeah, 9 Pokemon is a very decent amount of Pokemon to pick up with Cherish Ball, and like you mentioned, Stack Attacker is searchable via that Cherish Ball as well as the Stadium, so it's important to get those guys out as soon as you can to reduce the amount of damage that you have to heal, because the less damage you have to heal, the more healing cards you have for later.
Exactly. Now we move on to stadiums. We have 3 copies of Ultra Space, an exceptional stadium. With the amount of support we have, it's not really necessary to play the full 4 count because, of course, we played 2 Lusamine, so we can recur those infinitely if we so choose. But we also play 2 other supporters. We also played 2 copies of our own Chaotic Swirl to sort of deny Power Plant, because that is a big problem, especially when we have a defensive ability like Stack Attacker trying to prevent damage on our side of the field. There's going to be some very particular matchups where Chaotic Swirl is going to prevent a big chunk of damage from our opponents who might have been able to reduce it in the past by playing Power Plant going into their attacking phase.
Yeah, so it's obviously going to be important to stop those decks from stopping you healing, and if you can do that, that is definitely worth it. It's important to note as well that if they get the Power Plant down, not only can you not heal, but you also don't get the benefit of Stack Attacker, so you've got to make sure that you've got that option.
Yeah, it's there's an exceptional part of the deck that just gets cancelled out by Power Plant, so Chaotic Swell is a good option to have. And so next we have 2 copies of Tag Whistle. If you play more than like 3 to 4 copies of tag team supporters in total, and have at least 1 or 2 tag team Pokemon, you should be playing copies of this card. This card is ridiculous. Being able to search for any of your tag team supporters, considering how strong they are, especially in this deck. Guzma and Hala and Lana Mallow are both exceptionally strong in this deck, both being able to heal and set up our early game really well. So yeah, Tag Call or Tag Whistle is going to be exceptionally good in this deck.
Yeah, it is, and you think about it, you're going to be able to use this not only to find your NagaLord, but you could also use it to find your Buzzwole Pheromosa on turn 1. You pair that with a Guzma Hala, you're not only finding your Buzzwole, but you're also finding the energy with which to attack, and you're finding all the extra little bits that you need to go along with it. So it's a super, super valuable card, and it means that you don't always have to use Cherish Ball on those tag teams. You can use Tag Whistle in order to get those as well.
Yeah, it means you can exclusively save Cherish Ball for your Stack Attackers, which is quite good. It means you'll be able to get access to more of them more readily. So next we have 2 copies of B-String. So if your first Naga Guzzlord does go down, it takes a while to get that set up. So you want to be maintaining the pressure. So right back into it, play the B-String, set up the next one, straight back into attacking again. So Beast Ring is quite useful for that purpose, and that's why it's in the deck.
Yeah, 100%. And the fact that you can search it out with Steven's Resolve early as well means that decks that aren't playing things like Reset Stamp might not necessarily play that in the early game. They might want to save it for later, and you can hold on to that Beast Ring for most of the game, get yourself into your second NagaLord and start attacking straight away. It's important as well to remember that realistically you only need to take 4 prizes with NagaLord, so if you have obviously been hit by a Beast Ring, if you obviously have lost prizes, you could use Beast Ring to start powering up your GX attack as well. Maybe that can be the way that you get into your last couple of prizes.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we'll move on to the tools of this deck. We play 2 copies of Choice Helmet. We have even more damage reduction via Choice Helmet. This thing's a beast. It's an ultra beast. Let's make it even harder to kill. Let's see if anything can kill it.
Yeah, that's just a crazy card. And when you think about it, even without a stack attacker in play, if you've got a Choice Helmet on, then what? Gardevoir Sylveon does 150, right? It can't even kill this thing, even with just its like natural effects. So even 300 damage doesn't kill it. And there's not many Pokemon in the game that do more than 300 damage in one shot.
Yeah, even actually, I think Double Blaze might go through the Choice Helmet. That might be the lone exception because we don't actually amplify our health stat. So I think Double Blaze from Reshiram Charizard with 6 energy might be the only thing that gets through this massive beast. But you know, that's just one.
That's
You
one
still have
card,
to deal with there's still a second one.
And if you've got 3 Stack Attacker down, I don't know if it goes through the effects of Stack Attacker as well. I'm not sure.
Yep, we might have to do research on that one.
I presume it does, but if it doesn't, then you might even be able to survive anyway. But who cares? It's fine. They can only kill 1. What are they going to do? Do 230 damage? I'll just heal it all next turn.
Exactly. And next we also play a copy of Beastbringer. This deck doesn't take prizes quickly. It takes them precisely when it means to. And
that was so good.
And so when you've got I'm just sort of got a big grin on my face from all the praise you just gave me. But
that's such a bad joke when as well.
When it's on a Guzzlord, and you start applying that pressure, eventually something's going to cave, and if it's a GX Pokemon for your opponent, you're going to get to take an extra prize card for free because of Beastbringer, and that's really strong. So, you know, a lot of games you're not going to want to lead with the GX attack. Sometimes you don't, and also it's exceptionally strong on Buzzmoser as well because they apply a lot of pressure with the snipe as well.
Yeah, certainly do. And like you said, since you're setting up lots of knockouts, you give yourself the opportunity to find, firstly, the turns to get yourself into Beastringer. Is it Beastringer? Yeah, I don't know.
Beastbringer.
Bringer, sorry, my apologies. And you also have the opportunity to attach it early and keep it on there, because some decks just won't be able to knock this thing out. So you're going to be able to eventually start taking those prizes really easily, which will be really good.
Yep, it only gets you 1 bonus prize, but it's 1 less prize that you have to take, and when you're already cheating 2 prizes a game, being able to cheat a 3rd might just be enough to get you over the line in certain matchups.
It certainly might.
Lastly, we have a copy of Beast Ball. There's certain matchups where you might need all 4 copies of Stack Attacker. If one's in the prize cards, you're going to have a tough time, so the Beast Ball is specifically for that purpose. But it's just good search, and it's limited to the prize cards. But once you've done 1 search with Ultra Space, you know if you've got an Ultra Beast in the prize cards or not. Otherwise, you can just bin it if it's useless with the effect of a tag team supporter. So, you know, win-win.
Yep, and it gives you the opportunity to search out one of those Pokemon to heal as well, so it's effectively could just say heal 60 damage from your active.
Yeah, exactly. And lastly, we play a copy of Reset Stamp. You know the drill. After the first one goes down, we're probably drawing a lot of cards after playing like a Stevens or 2 and playing coach trainers, stuff like that. We've probably drawn into Reset Stamp. If we haven't, we probably can take it on one of our early Stevens so that when the first NagaLord goes down, we stamp them to 3, and then hopefully the pressure that we apply for the rest of the game plus all the healing is enough to get us over the line. But that's the purpose of Reset Stamp. I'm sure everyone's used to it by now.
Yep, it's a good card.
Yep. And lastly, and probably most interestingly, is our energy count. So, because of NagaLord's curious energy cost, we play 3 copies of Dark Energy. We play 3 copies of Psychic Energy. We play 2 copies of the relatively new Weakness Guard Energy to give us the extra boost against Guardian and the new Fairy type attackers that Lost March just got access to. There's a bunch of new Fairy types that are concerning at the moment. I feel like this is only going to get more popular as an attacking type. So I think Weakness Guard is really effective. It's also nice to put on a stack attacker at the back if you're up against Ability Zard or something like that. To prevent them from getting one shot. So you could chuck like a choice helmet and a Weakness Guard energy on the stack attacker in the back, and then suddenly it can't get Catcher knocked out anymore, or Ninetales knocked out.
That's really, really strong. The fact that you're not only stopping them from applying weakness, but the stack attacker's ability is going to stop them from doing the required damage. That could be very important.
Yep, and lastly, the Beast Energy, which all Ultra Beast decks play. It's exceptionally strong. You always play it in the deck that has Ultra Beast in the tag that you're attacking with.
Yep, and the fact that it adds the extra 30 damage means that the 180 from NagaLord turns into 210, which is the number that lots of Stage 1 GXs like Weavile and Silvally GX, the new Volcarona, all those Pokemon get knocked out by an attack for 210, so
yeah,
it's super, super easy to get yourself into those final knockouts.
Yeah, it's really good for NagaLord as a deck that 2 new super popular 210 HP Pokemon in Volcarona and Silvally just hit the scene. So now they have 2 beautiful new targets to eat up with a potentially Beast Bringer attached, Beast Energy attached, Jet Pierce.
Yeah,
which,
and
very strong.
Wouldn't it be great if you could use one supporter to search for both of those cards?
Yeah, exactly. Just one supporter. But yeah, that is the deck.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this deck in action because this is literally the first time I'm looking at it, and theoretically it seems very, very strong. The fact that it's so difficult to one-shot, and the fact that if you don't one-shot it, it's very likely to heal itself up. It's very concerning. I'm not sure about the early game for it. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm sure, Blake, that you'll be able to beat me quite comfortably in our upcoming videos.
We'll have to see about that. I'm not a professional when it comes to stall-based decks, so hopefully this has enough early game to get it to the point where I need it to. Otherwise, it might need some few tweaks, or maybe it's just not that good. But I like the idea of it. It was the best idea I could come up with to really embody NagaLord as a card. I feel like anything else, it's really just pretending to be something it's not. So I feel like in this position, it's really doing its best.
Yeah, and the best thing as well is that you didn't just go, oh hey, it's got Psychic Energy cost, we'll just put it with Malamar. I think the stall kind of healing, stalling version is a much more apt way to play the big fat Guzzlord.
I mean, you could even pair it with Weavile too, but after just previously sleeving up Dark Box, I felt like making 2 Weavile decks in a row seemed like a bit much for me.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a reasonable statement. Thanks, Blake, for sharing this one.
No worries.
I hope it does well, and I hope everyone enjoyed the content. If you do, like and subscribe. You can like the video and subscribe by clicking the Sableye in the middle of the screen. On the left-hand side, we've got some videos that YouTube thinks that you'll like, and on the right, we have our Cosmic Eclipse playlist for more matchups and profiles for the upcoming format. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you all next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.